In the heart of 1800s Victorian England, there existed an unseen terror. A peaceful town, nestled in the bosom of the countryside, was the epitome of picturesque beauty. Cobblestone streets, quaint cottages, and the ever-present scent of fresh-baked bread and blooming flowers painted a serene tableau of daily life. But beneath this idyllic veneer, strange happenings began to unsettle the town. Whispers of unexplained disappearances filled the air as people began vanishing without a trace, like wisps of smoke in the wind. Alongside these, sightings of strange apparitions, as fleeting and elusive as the morning mist, sent chills down the spines of even the bravest souls. An undercurrent of dread started to permeate the town, like a fog rolling in from the sea. The townsfolk, once cheerful and trusting, now harbored a palpable fear, their eyes reflecting uncertainty and unease. The once peaceful town was now under the shadow of an ominous presence. But little did they know the terror had just begun. The first victim, a merchant, was found lifeless, his body drained of blood. The horror that settled upon the town's people was almost palpable. The merchant, a well-respected member of the community, was discovered in the cold light of dawn. His pallid complexion was a stark contrast to the crimson pool that had collected beneath him. The vitality that once filled his robust frame was nowhere to be seen. His life force, it seemed, had been sucked out of him, leaving behind an eerie shell of the man he once was. A chill wind blew through the town, carrying whispers of the ghastly discovery. The news spread like wildfire, reaching every corner, every household. The once bustling marketplace grew quiet, the usual hum of bartering, replaced with hushed conversations and fearful glances. The townsfolk, once jovial and carefree, now wore expressions of shock and unease. The vibrancy of the town seemed to have faded overnight, replaced by a shroud of dread that hung heavily in the air. The town constable, a gruff man of few words, was left baffled by the case. No signs of a struggle, no signs of forced entry, just a lifeless body and a puzzling mystery. As the day wore on, the constable's office was flooded with theories and rumors. Stories of monsters and demons started to circulate, each more terrifying than the last. The townsfolk, gripped by fear, started to retreat into their homes as soon as the sun began to set. The once lively taverns were now desolate, the merry laughter and clinking of glasses replaced with an oppressive silence. The streets, once filled with the sounds of children playing and vendors hawking their wares, now echoed with an eerie quiet. The fear that had begun as a whisper had now grown into an all-consuming terror. As the moon rose in the night sky, casting long, menacing shadows, the town was eerily quiet. The townsfolk, once undeterred by the darkness, now cowered in their homes, praying for the safety of the dawn. The town was now in the grip of an unknown fear, a fear of the unseen. As night fell, the unseen terror, a vampire, began its reign. Enveloped in the shroud of darkness, this creature of the night stepped out from the shadows, its fangs glistening under the silvery moonlight. Its eyes, cold and lifeless, glowed with an unholy light, a chilling, invisible presence that made the air grow thick with dread. This was not a beast of impulse, but a predator of calculated precision. It hunted with a chilling efficiency, selecting its victims with an unnerving discretion. The streets of Victorian England, once bustling with life, now lay silent and deserted. The only sounds that dared break the silence were the occasional hushed whispers of the wind and the distant echo of a church bell. Tolling ominously in the distance, the vampire moved through the town like a shadow, leaving in its wake a trail of lifeless bodies. Its victims were found at the break of dawn, their faces frozen in an expression of terror, their bodies drained of life. Each one bore the vampire's signature mark, 2 small puncture wounds on the neck, a chilling testament to the vampire's reign. As the moon traversed the night sky, the vampire continued its hunt. Its thirst for blood was insatiable, its hunger for life unending. It reveled in the fear it instilled, the chaos it stirred. It was a terror that knew no bounds, a nightmare that never ended. The once vibrant town was now a ghost town, its residents living in constant fear of the night. The vampire's reign was not one of power or authority, but of fear and death. It held the town in its cold, unyielding grasp, its reign unchallenged, its power absolute. The vampire was not a ruler, but a tyrant, its reign marked by a trail of lifeless bodies and a town living in fear. With each passing night, the vampire's reign of terror grew. The town was slowly succumbing to its rule, its inhabitants living in a state of perpetual fear. The vampire's reign was relentless, its terror unyielding. The night was no longer a time of rest, but a time of fear, a time when the unseen terror, the vampire, began its reign. Desperate to end the nightmare, the townsfolk turned to ancient folklore. It was a time of terror, and the people, in their collective despair, sought solace in the old tales of their ancestors. The stories told of creatures of the night and the methods to ward them off. Garlic, they said, was a powerful deterrent, its pungent aroma repelling the unholy, and so the town reeked of it. Every home, every alley, every nook and cranny was festooned with strings of the bulbous plant. Yet the vampire was undeterred. The scent of garlic mingled with the iron tang of blood in the air, a grotesque testament to the vampire's relentless carnage. Crosses, the symbol of sacred protection, were brandished with fervor. They were hung on doorways, worn around necks, clutched in trembling hands. The townsfolk prayed, their voices a chorus of desperation echoing through the cobblestone streets. But the vampire, it seemed, was beyond divine intervention. The cross, that sacred symbol, was nothing more than a trinket in the face of this insidious evil. In their desperation, the townsfolk even attempted to sanctify their homes with holy water. They sprinkled it on their thresholds, hoping to create a barrier against the vampire. But the creature of the night stepped over these blessed lines as if they were mere puddles after a light drizzle. The people, their hope fading as fast as the setting sun, resorted to more drastic measures. The blacksmith's hammer rang out late into the night, crafting stakes from ash wood, said to pierce the heart of the monster. But the vampire eluded them, its dark form disappearing into the shadows just as they thought they had it cornered. Their efforts were commendable, their bravery undeniable. Yet, the vampire remained a specter of death, its crimson eyes glowing in the darkness. Despite their best efforts, the townsfolk were helpless against the horror that had befallen them. The vampire was unstoppable, its thirst for blood insatiable. In a shocking revelation, the vampire was identified as one of their own. Imagine the horror, the sheer disbelief that would grip the town as they came to this realization. This was not some foreign menace, not some unknown creature of the night that had descended upon them. No, this was far more intimate, far more personal. This was a betrayal of the highest order. The vampire, the cause of their torment, the architect of their despair, was none other than a respected member of their own community, a man they had trusted, had confided in, had admired, a man who had walked the same cobblestone streets, had sat in the same pews, had laughed and cried with them in the best and worst of times, a man who had shared in their joys and sorrows, their triumphs and failures, a man they had considered one of their own. This revelation was like a dagger to the heart. The townsfolk were plunged into a deeper abyss of horror and despair. Their trust had been shattered, their faith had been broken. They had been betrayed by one of their own, and the pain of that betrayal was almost too much to bear. The vampire was no longer an abstract terror, a phantom in the night. It was a tangible reality, a living nightmare that had taken root in their midst. It was a chilling reminder of their vulnerability, their mortality. It was a sinister echo of the darkness that lurked within the human soul, a stark testament to the depths of depravity that one could sink into. The town was now under siege, not from an external threat, but from an internal enemy. An enemy who knew them intimately, who understood their strengths and weaknesses, who could exploit their fears and anxieties. An enemy who could strike at any moment, who could blend seamlessly into the crowd, who could hide in plain sight. An enemy who was one of them. The town was now at the mercy of one of its own. On the final night, the town prepared for a last stand. The cobblestone streets, once bustling with life, now echoed with a grim determination. Men and women, young and old, stood shoulder to shoulder, their eyes reflecting a burning resolve to end the terror that held them captive. The blacksmith's hammer rang out in the still night, crafting weapons of silver and iron. The church bell tolled, not in fear, but in defiance, as prayers filled the air with an energy that was palpable. Homes were fortified, children were hugged a little tighter, and goodbyes were whispered into the chilling wind, their faces etched with lines of worry, their hands steady with purpose. They gathered in the town square. The silence was deafening, the tension almost tangible. The once thriving community was now a fortress, a beacon of human spirit against the dark force that had consumed their lives. As the sun set, the town held its breath, awaiting the final battle. The night was long, and the battle fierce. The silence of the Victorian town was shattered by the clash of steel and the savage cries of the vampire. The moon, a lone witness in the sky, cast long shadows that danced with the flicker of torchlight. Each corner, each alley, echoed with the desperate fight for survival. The vampire, once a mere myth, now a terrifying reality, raged with a wrath unseen. Like a storm, it tore through the town, leaving destruction in its wake. Its eyes, cold and relentless, mirror-read the horror of the night. The townsfolk, driven by fear and desperation, fought back with all their might. The air was thick with their resolve and the shared desire to reclaim their home. The once peaceful town was now a battlefield, each stone and brick a testament to their struggle. As dawn approached, a final blow was struck, but who survived, the town or the vampire? Only the next night will tell. Hey everyone, thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Macabre Nightmare. Until next time, enjoy your nightmares.